Hello everyone, I'm the okayest bassist, and this is a comparison video. I was asked quite a few times when the GOC's video came out, and since the HILs video has come out, I've had a lot of requests for comparisons between multi-scale headless basses. The HILs I've covered in detail in some of the comments. If more people ask about the HILs than they do the GOC, as this brand has more information and comparisons out there than the GOC does. I can make those as well, especially if people actually like this format of video. But this will be part of a small series of comparisons between instruments to the GOC, as it's a much less known brand. So comparing and contrasting between these two, there are quite a few things that are very similar. They are both, as you can see, headless instruments. They are both multi-scale. In the case of the GOC, 37 to 34. In the case of the HILs, I believe it's 35 to 33, somewhere in there. They are both a more modern, ergonomic, metal-ish design. The materials of which they made are quite different. The GOC are made out of swamp ash, whereas the bodies on the HILs instruments, I believe, are basswood, whatever you want to call it. I'm not 100% on that. You can look these things up, or if I remember, I'll put them on the screen, but probably not because I'm lazy, because you can Google things yourself. However, they both have painted finishes. The GOCs here on my right, your left, they come all in, as of time of recording, solid semi-opaque finishes. You can see wood grain through them, whereas the HILs, some of them have burst. In this particular case, this one has this metallic pink sparkly paint over it. Pickguard on the HILs, standard style screw-on, whereas on the GOC, it is a single layer, not a triple layer, and it is held in by a slight amount of resistance and friction wedge between the neck and the pickup, so the pickguard can just pop on and off. The fingerboard on the GOC is a Richlite type material, whereas the back is Wenge and I believe walnut. On the HILs, it is a rosewood style fingerboard with maple and I want to say mahogany being the stripes on the back. I didn't look into any of the specific details on material because they are made of wood and they hold strings over a pickup to make metal vibrate over the top of a magnetic shield, whatever it's called. The pickups have magnets, metal interferes with it, it makes sound. Very sciencey, sorcery stuff. The connections on them on the back, the HILs uses 4 bolts, whereas the GOC uses 5. They have a lot of similarities, but they have a lot of differences. The neck shape on the GOC, they call their AO style neck shape. It's roughly akin to what you get out of a Strandberg, except it's not a variable trapezoid. There is a definitive line in the back that you can feel, like a ridge, and it goes straight with the neck as opposed to varying the degree of angle, whereas the HILs is a standard rounded neck back. It does get quite flat on the back, but it's very comfortable. Both of them have nubbins on the top where they can be put on a hanger. They both use all-in-one hardware for setting intonation, string height. Neither of these have a string width variation built into their hardware, as does the Ibanez EHB systems. Each of these come with their own goods and bad. So setting intonation on the GOC, there is a mechanical screw at the end that allows you to set the intonation, and there are grub screws in the end of the bridge saddles to adjust string height. Whereas the HILs does not have the mechanical adjustment for intonation. You have to move that piece physically as opposed to mechanically. It's not a fan I am not a fan of that particular style. And then string height also adjusted standard side, put in grub screws, strings go up and down for both of them. With the HILs, the strings go in through the top and then kind of lay inside a recess that is the shape of the ball end. And then as the string gets tightened, they get pulled under this front shield, which holds the strings down better. And then it is the screws on the back that you use to tighten and loosen. Whereas on the GOC, the strings go in, they go underneath, and they kind of hook in a little frame underneath, and then you again turn these to pull the string forward and back. If I was giving a comparison of rating on hardware, as much as I like the mechanical ability to adjust intonation on the GOC, the hardware that is on the HILs for that bridge piece, I would prefer those. The GOC ones are still good. They still work. They're just very big, bulky, and I don't care for the way they hold the string or how they get tightened. They seem to have less string travel, which in my mind, if you're going headless, the strings are low on tension unless you're really cranking on them before you put them into the string retainer. So you want as much travel as you can get, because if you don't pull the string super tight at the beginning, I've had times where I've had to loosen strings, pull them through, clamp them, and then reattach them in the head before I had enough travel to be able to get it fully tuned. Now that's operator error, and I've learned from that, but it's still a consideration. At the points of the top, the heads on them, they are very different in both function and design. So the GOC has 2 screws that hold it down, whereas the HILs only uses 1. The GOC at least appears to be one solid machined piece of steel that they then cut slots in wide enough for the string to fit in, and then the 2 screws go into threaded carves that just went into the solid steel, whereas HILs has it all as one piece that's been engineered with the screws going in through the top. What I will say is on the HILs side, if you're using, like I use the tape wound strings, it's not a common string, but if you were going for extra heavy gauge, there could be some concern with getting the heavy gauge B string into that slot. The GOC has a little of that concern, but not as much. I do prefer this headpiece to the one on the HILs. So kind of a best of both worlds between the two. You also have that on the HILs, it's more of the Fender-esque style where there's a slot cut and then the nut sits inside that slot on the side of the neck. Whereas on the GOC, the nut is all the way at the end of the fretboard right before like the headpiece cover is there. So it's not like inside the fretboard material, it's between the fretboard and the headstock veneer. So there is that. The other thing to discuss on these is their electronics. The GOC has 2 very close set active pickups. They are active only. I have taken and asked if anyone could wire them to be able to go passive, and the pickups themselves require power. So there isn't a true passive option unless you change the pickups out. The controls are very much what you would expect. You have a volume, you have a tone, and then you have a 3-band EQ. On the HILs, however, it has 2 more spaced apart single coil pickups for this particular model, which is the HNB5, I believe. If I'm wrong, hopefully I correct myself. 2 single coil pickups. These are passive pickups, but they do have the active preamp, but with the push-pull on the volume pot, you can pull the volume pot out and it goes into passive mode. So I 100% give it the win on electronics. Both of them had the same, in my mind, design flaw where the strap button was on the back side of the horn. Plenty of people like that for ergonomics, I suspect. However, I hate having that button on the back because if I'm playing and I'm holding the instrument close, I have a strap button stabbing me in the chest. So I have moved both of them to the end, which I feel is a great improvement. The only other thing I will say is you may notice on the back that the GOC has the battery compartment off on what would be the top of the body while playing, with a screw-on bolt cavity, pickup cavity, control cavity, everything there on what would be the bottom. That is quite different than the HILs, whose is off to the side, also has a central where you can get underneath that bridge piece, and then it has the battery compartment about the same in relative position on the body. So there's a little bit more control cavity availability there. In both cases, the machining is within the scope of the body. So if you were to set these on something like I have on my legs right now, you are not going to have the tuners risking setting directly on something without some support from the body. Or more so, if you were to accidentally drop one of these onto the floor, there is some wood around that's going to take that hit before the actual mechanics that hold your instrument together. And as those bridges are what's holding the tension of the string, longevity wise, it's probably better that the wood takes that hit. It might mar the finish, but it's less likely to have some sort of catastrophic pullout and destruction of your instrument. The HILs also has the two little rubber feet, plastic feet, that it can set directly on the ground, stays level, so you could lean it in a corner. If you didn't have a stand handy, it can actually just sit there on its own. They have that pre-built, which not needed at all, but it's a neat little feature. So that is what I have on these two. Please leave a comment if you like this. Like I said, this is supposed to be a small mini series where I'm going to compare the GOC and or HILs to other instruments around that I have. So if you liked it, please let me know of other instruments that I currently possess, if there's other ones you would like to see, and I will try to prioritize those first. Otherwise, the plan is this combo, Geo against the Dingwall, the GOC against the Strandberg, and the GOC against the standard Ibanez EHB MS, as opposed to the short multi-scale, as that's completely different. Again, if there's others you'd like to see, if you want me to do it with the Sire, I can do that as well. Just let me know. As always, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a day as awesome as you are.